to preach here today, for asking me to do it. And I was thinking, I really appreciate your courage and your trust to allow people from the congregation to preach. And I pray that I have done justice to this passage and something will speak to you. As many of you know, in my job I'm a speech and language therapist, and currently I'm working in a school for children with learning disabilities and autism. Children with learning disabilities and autism are usually or frequently visual learners. And I realised when I was asked to do this, the first thing I went and did is tried to find a picture, because I'm so used to finding pictures to amplify what I'm saying so that children can understand them. So I've got the picture on the wall, and the picture, I've put some copies of it on the chairs at the front of people who won't be able to sit. Okay? And this picture is part of a mosaic from the ceiling of a chapel in Rome. It's 12th century Christian art, and it depicts life in 12th century. So there's no tellies, no mobile phones, and no cars. But there are people just living, which I enjoyed. The vine and the cross at the bottom of the picture are actually growing out of an acanthus bush, which was an ancient Greek and Roman symbol for abundance and new life. It's obviously an incredibly stylized picture, because in real life, vines are large, untidy, unwieldy bushes that need a lot of support to bear fruit. The passage that I'm talking about today comes from John writing to an early Christian community. So the message is placed in the Bible in the time between Jesus praying in the Garden of Gethsemane and him being taken by the authorities to be crucified. And we can assume that the words were spoken to his disciples. I think that Jesus is intending his parting words to be of strength to his disciples. When John wrote his gospel, the Christian community that he's writing to is small. They've been excommunicated from their previous community. Their network of relationships has had to have changed. This is a fractured group. It's facing extreme and enduring hardship. And I've taken and understand this passage as being an image, a metaphor for relationship, community, and for spiritual growth. In the Jewish tradition, the image of the vine is seen as Israel. God brought a vine out of Egypt and planted it in the promised land. It's an image from Psalms. Jesus is offering his disciples a new image, that he is the vine. Jesus is the real vine through which the purposes of God will be fulfilled. This is a picture of relationship with God through Christ, as close as the trunk of the vine to its branches. It is one. If you think about a plant, there's no gap between the trunk and the branches. It is a living, organic relationship in this image that we are offered with God. The sap of the trunk of the real vine is love. The branches allow love to flow through them, and that sap, the love, allows us to bear fruit. The image uses one of John's favourite words in his gospel, which is abide, which he uses as both a noun and a verb in this passage. And the translation for abide are multiple, as you'd expect, but it means make yourself at home. Stay in place. We are being encouraged to make ourselves at home with the God who loves all humanity. That is home, that is a place of welcome, rest, and a place of freedom to change and grow. The fruit described in the passage is the fruit for the Christian community and the whole of humanity. It is not doing well. It is not getting on in life. The fruit, as described in the Bible, is love, compassion, charity, forgiveness. And you won't have to read very much in the news to know that we're going to have to bear an awful lot of fruit to help heal and restore our world as it is today. The image for community is clear. As with many other images of community in the Bible, we are all in community because we are all branches of the same vine. We grow and we live in relation to God and with each other. And how branches on any plant grow affects the growth and development of other branches. We are to live in relationship and community. All aspects of our life that bear fruit are because of our relationship with the trunk, with the real vine, and the love that flows through us from God and Christ. Many years ago, as I'm sure you've heard before, Neville and I went through the process of adopting our daughter. And it's a very long process. And one of the things that we learned in the process was the phrase, connect before correct. And I've just found that a really useful maxim in all my relationships at work, thinking about my relationship with God and with family and friends. Connect, develop relationship before correct, before supporting people to change. All people desire relationship. How we perceive relationship, friendship and love is developed in our earliest relationships as young babies. It starts at that level. And the patterns of relationship that we have as we grow older start in very, very young days, months and years. It's possible for our perceptions to change as we grow, but it is difficult to learn to develop healthy relationships with others if our initial attachments were poor or abusive. God desires relationship with us, intimate and close, that allows us to grow, develop our full potential. He wants to connect with us. However, this connection, as in the connection between us as individuals, can only be done at the speed of the slowest, the one who finds it the most difficult to respond to love. So the next part of the metaphor and what I want to explore is about pruning and its requirement for spiritual growth. However, if we are not at a place at the moment in our lives or at the moment today where we feel connected and confident with God and trust that the sap, the relationship is love, then any talk about correction can seem punitive and terrifying sometimes. So, I give you full permission to switch off for the next part if you're not at a point where you want want to hear? Concentrate on the image that I've given you. Concentrate on words of connection at the start of this. So, I was reading a really lovely Christian writer called James Hollis, and he said, if truth be known, we wish we didn't have to grow, but life is asking more of us than that. And I thought, yeah, it does, doesn't it? And when I really concentrated on this passage and dwelt long enough on the image of love and the relationship it offers humanity, I get pruning. Pruning gets rid of dead branches to make sure the healthy ones are in place to bear fruit. I understand that, and sometimes I might even desire cleansing and pruning. I want to be filled with God's presence, and I do want to bear fruit. I don't want any of my branches to choke life from any of your branches. I don't want my branch to cross yours so we rub and we cause damage to each other. And I do understand that those branches that grow from me that are not filled with love, those things I do daily, that do not come from a love of humanity and a love of God's world, needs to be pruned until it comes to reality. And the still small voice of love that prompts me to forgive someone with whom I still bear a grudge. Or a sermon prompts me to join in the movements of Christians turning the world upside down. Suddenly, I become a bit more closed and a bit more entrenched, and I become fond of my ideas and my attitudes and my behaviours that keep the world the right way up for me. And my life fine, just as it is, thank you. This passage makes it clear that all of us are cleansed and pruned. The disciples were cleansed and pruned, and it was going to continue after Jesus had died. Resurrected, obviously. And the whole point of it was that it's a continuous process so that we can bear more fruit. And even the parts of us that are doing quite well but could do more are cleansed and pruned to bear more fruit. Can we stay as we are? In this passage, the answer is no. In the most loving, gentle, redemptive way, we need to continue to grow and change as individuals within our community to bear fruit for humanity and the whole of creation. Those fruit include love, joy, peace, compassion. Jesus was clear. The disciples had already been pruned by listening to his words. They'd made changes in their lives, their relationships, their work ambitions, their understanding of their own culture, because of their relationship with Jesus and listening to his word. The consolation in this passage is the workman, the gardener, is God. God who loves each one of us more than we can imagine. God who desires and unceasingly works for the redemption of all humanity is prompting us to continue changing. So what does this mean to our relationship with God? How do we maintain a trusting relationship through this change? It's through the word abide. We stay. We rest. We make ourselves at home in the vine through prayer, reading, conversation, meditation, and mostly by knowing that we are welcome, knowing that we are wanted in the real home. And our community in this church, how do we support each other through change and growth? Change can be really disconcerting and very discombobulating. Change that we have no control over can be really hard. But in my reading and understanding, I don't believe that all the changes that life gives us is necessarily spiritual pruning by God. I think there is a difference. But I wouldn't like to say for any one of us which part is which. People, time after time, much more mature in faith than me, talk about learning and changing and growing and becoming closer to God during difficult times. Their faith and relationship with God, is a comfort. And sometimes when they look back on difficult situations, they can identify times of feeling held or recognise the changes that they've made have actually been good and fruitful. The pruning by God the gardener is redemptive. And unlike the vine in the image, our pruning requires us to work with God, to listen and to respond to the small voice of the Spirit, and allow areas of our lives that are bearing no fruit to drop off, and to allow the further development of branches that bear some fruit to bear more. So I pray that myself and everyone here can take what we need today from this image given by Christ to his disciples, and that we may all truly feel at home as a branch of the real vine.
Jenny, thank you so much.